All right, everybody, this video is about setting up a failsafe on your Outlaw 250. This should also work to some extent on your other plane, though we might do some configuration as well in the Light configuration tool. But for a basic failsafe on an RC plane, there's no flight controller on board this aircraft. So in that case, we need to set up a predetermined set of behavior. So if we lose link between the transmitter and the plane, then the plane knows what to do, or it does something predictable, basically. It doesn't just fly away and we never see it again. And the most common failsafe for a standard RC plane is just to cut the throttle, so turn the motor off. That way it can't go too far anywhere. You can also add a little bit of turn into the failsafe there, so the plane will kind of cut the throttle and come it down in a little bit of a spiral, hopefully not fly too far away. Other things you could think about, if you want to add a little bit of a dive in there, you could, depending on what you want to do with your model. At a minimum for the class, I need you to set it so that your throttle does not keep going if there's a failsafe. Okay, and we'll see that's pretty much already set up by default in Express LRS, but I'll show you how to tweak it if you like, and or add some other things in there for the plane to do if you lose link between the if you lose link between the plane and the transmitter. Okay, that's why our prop's not on right now. That throttle bump could have just spun that up on the table. You can never have your prop on when you're working on the bench. All right, but let's check this out real quick. If I throttle up a little bit, my motor's armed and spinning. Okay, and to simulate a failsafe, I can just turn my transmitter off. Okay, oops. I'll go ahead and turn it off, and the motor stopped by itself. Okay, so we at a minimum, we need to check that and make sure it's working. In this case, my failsafe from my receiver is working. The default failsafe in Express LRS for a PWM receiver is just to cut the throttle. Nothing else changes. The throttle just cuts, and all the other surfaces stay at their neutral point. Okay, so they don't stay at whatever they're doing before you lose link. They just go to their neutral point. Okay, so if I had been doing a turn and I lost link, the throttle would turn off and the plane would go back to straight and level flight, or at least it would try to go back to straight and level flight. And that's a pretty good fail-safe. Okay? But if you want to set up anything additional, I'm going to show you how to do that here in the web interface for our Express LRS receivers. Okay? I'm going to pause for a second and switch over there. All right, so to get to the interface to set up your Express LRS receiver, you have to unplug and plug back in your aircraft, and then you wait about 60 seconds, and your receiver will go into what's called Wi-Fi mode. Okay, so that instead of the normal kind of solid light or flashing light, it'll be a very fast flash. I don't know if you can really see it here because I can see it through here in the bottom, but it's not going to show up on the camera, but it's a fast flashing right now. And if that's the case, then you go to your Wi-Fi networks on your computer, and you look for one called Express LRS RX. Okay, you may need to be close to your computer, fairly close to your computer. The Wi-Fi signal that these broadcast is not like super strong. Okay, but if we go here, let's go to my full display capture here. Okay, let's try that. All right, so if we go to the full display capture, we can see my Wi-Fi stuff over here. You see this Express LRS RX. So I'm going to hit connect. Okay, it's going to connect to that one. And if it asks you for a password, it will say that the password is all lowercase Express LRS. Okay, I already typed in the password so it remembers it for me. All right. But then we're going to go get a pop-up like this on your web browser, most likely. Make sure this is still recording. Okay. And continue to the HTTP site as my blocker, but you can hit Open Network Login page here. And you should get a page like this. Okay. So at this point, we see our receivers connected to this network, this little hotspot it's made. And we can go over here into the Model tab, okay, and see our outputs. So PWM output. The receiver I'm using happens to have 6 channels. You may have a 5-channel receiver, an 8-channel receiver, whatever it is. Okay, but here's where we can change some of the fail-safe behavior of our receiver. Okay, you can leave all this stuff alone for right now, at least on the Outlaw you can. This will look different if you're watching this video for the Light. But for the Outlaw plane that just has a straight receiver, no flight control or anything, this is how it'll look. And over here we have channel 3, which is our throttle channel. Okay, and we see the failsafe by default is set to 988, which is basically 0 throttle. If you remember that the signals on a radio transmitter go basically from 1,000 to 2,000, a little bit below 1,000 sometimes, a little bit above 2,000 sometimes, but 988 is going to be a 0 throttle value. So if you want to leave that there, that would be just fine. There's nothing else you really need to do. But if you want to add in some other inputs for your failsafe, say for your ailerons, for example, you want them to have a little bit of a turn. Okay, your ailerons are on channel 1. and potentially channel 4. Okay, so you would change this value from 1500, which is just nice and neutral, say to, I don't know, just a very slight turn. We could say 1350 or something like that. Okay, now you want to double check this value when you go back to your plane and make sure that when you turn your transmitter off and it loses link, it does what you want it to do, right? But this is how you would set those values. Remember, 2000 is kind of like full and 1000 is zero, if that makes sense. If you're using something other than the throttle, 2000 would be to the right on the ailerons, okay, or up on the elevator in most cases. Though just double check because everybody's setup might be a little bit different. Once you've set your fail-safe values here, whatever you want to set for them, you hit set PWM output here, and it will save those values. Okay. At that point, let's go here. You would be able to come back with your radio and your aircraft, turn them all on, make sure it's working, and then turn your radio off again, and make sure it does what you wanted it to do. Okay, if it doesn't, that means it either didn't save in the configuration, or you set it up just incorrectly. You didn't realize which numbers were supposed to go where or something. You want to double check that and go back through that again. Okay, and that's how you set a fail-safe with the Outlaw. Again, if you're watching this for the flight test or light flight controller plane, the Explorer, they'd be a little bit different. I'll have a different video for that to kind of go into more into those points there. But for our basic RC plane, using Express LRS, that's how you set the fail-safe. So hopefully that helps. Again, at a minimum, you just want the throttle to turn off, and that's set up by default. So really just a verify step is all that's needed, unless you want some kind of more advanced fail-safe with a turn in there or something like that. All right, thanks.